Welcome back to the wood shop. Today we're going to be learning how to dress stock. First thing you want to do is find a good piece of wood from our wood pile and take it over to the miter saw station so you can rough cut it to length. You always want to give yourself an extra inch or half an inch than you require so that you don't end up milling a piece of wood that can't give you the pieces you need for your project. When you make your mark, always draw a full line across the entire piece and put an indication onto the side which will become the waste side, or the part that you're not keeping for your project. Make a cut, keeping your line so that you know you'll have enough material, and then you're going to head over to the jointer. When you put your piece on the jointer, make sure that you don't use your hands, but rather use push pads and push sticks in a combination of those. You want to also make sure that the more stable side of the piece is facing down so it doesn't rock as it goes over the blades. And sometimes it'll stop on you, and that's because you're probably putting too much pressure down onto the blades. Ideally, what you want to do is only push down on the piece as it gets to the outfeed side of the table on the left hand side of the jointer. Make several passes until one face is clean all the way through. Then you're going to do an edge joint. So you're going to take that same piece of wood and you're going to place the clean face you just made up against the fence. Make sure it's not tipping. You want it to be flat against the fence. And then you can use a push block or a push pad and your hand to run the piece over the blades and clean that edge. Again, make sure that as you push it over the blades, you're not pushing down, but you're pushing into the fence. That way the piece doesn't tip and catch the outfeed table before it can make its way over the blades. Check that it's square by placing your piece up against the fence, and then you can head over to the planer. First step when we use the planer is to check the thickness of our board. You want to use your calipers, open the jaws, and take a measurement on the edge of your board. You might want to take 2 or 3 measurements if your board is particularly out of flatness, but in this case, I just measured the piece to 1 inch, then I'm going to set the bed of my planer to that same thickness. Once I have my planer bed set, I'm going to grab my piece, make sure that I take the clean face and place it down onto the table, not the other way around. The cutter heads are above on a planer, so you want the clean face down, and you're going to remove material from the top of the board. Make sure you place the piece on the planer bed with the grain feeding into the machine, not the other way, not on its edge. And every pass, you'll take the wheel on the right-hand side and turn it 1 rotation clockwise. That will remove 0.06 inches of material. Continue to pass your piece through the planer, making 1 turn at a time until you have reached your desired thickness. Check your thickness using the calipers, and if you're satisfied, you can now make your way over to the table saw to rip your piece to finish width. In this case, I want my piece to be 5.5 inches, so I've made a mark to make sure that my piece will give me 5.5 clean inches along the length of the board. I set the fence on the table saw to the same dimension, put my blade guard in place, and now I'm going to make my cut. I want to turn the machine on with the piece of wood far back from the blade. Then I will push the piece through the cut, making sure to keep it tight to the fence and down on the table. If you're cutting a narrow board, make sure you also have a push stick handy. Take your offcut and pop it in the scrap bin, and then you can take your finished piece that you're going to be working with over to the miter saw, just trying to square up the end of your board. Usually a blade's width of cutting will do. And then you can check that the end of your piece is square. Assuming your piece is square, you now have a flat, square board that you can begin taking measurements of to build. And that is how we dress stock. Make sure you follow those safety rules so that you can have fun in the wood shop. Thanks for coming around, and I'll see you next time.